Hello and welcome back to another Warframe video. Today I'm going to be talking about Dread and its Incarnon form, right? So, to start off, right, Dread has always been good, and this Incarnon just pushes over the top. Essentially, it just makes it like its Incarnon form is essentially like a Nadaruk, but a little bit stronger, right? So we get into the evolutions to start with, and then you know, weak point hit, charge, Incarnate Transmutation, alt fire transmute, switching back will expend all remaining charges. Sacrifice silence for increased projectile size and heat damage. So in its incarnate form, it just gets a bunch of heat, and it acts like it's got a lot more multi-shot than it does. I'll get into that later, but for Evolution 2, I went with Hitman's Opportunity, which is increased base damage by plus 70, and then plus 100% damage to enemies below half health, which that second part I don't really notice until I get to super high level enemies, right? So even like base Steel Path, it one-shots for the most part. You get your stacks built up and it just melts through enemies. Now the other option, increased base damage by plus 50, with Hate and Despair equipped, hits increased base damage by plus 10, plus 10% fire rate, stacks up to 5 times, resets on missed shot. This one is better if you're running the full Stalker setup. Otherwise, you want to go with Hitman's Opportunity. I will switch it if I'm running the full Stalker setup, but at the same time, I usually just keep it on Hitman's Opportunity, so I can run whatever like secondary and melee I want, right? As for Evolution 3, we went with minus 30% zoom, projectile speed. I like in its base form, you don't really notice the projectile speed increase. It's when it's in its Incarnon you'll notice it, but at the same time it doesn't matter too much. Increase base ammo capacity to 144. Again, this like Evolution 3 doesn't really matter which one you choose. I went with the minus zoom because I like minus zoom on a lot of stuff. So that's why I'll go for like minus zoom on Ribbons. The only time I switch it to either projectile speed or increased base ammo capacity is if for the negative of a Ribbon it has one of the like it'll have like minus projectile speed, then I'll add swift deliverance, or if it's like minus base ammo capacity, I'll put Hitman Horde on, right? As for Evolution 4, I went with increased base crit chance by 10% and increased base status chance by 10%. That, like, I've tested most, like, both of these other ones out extensively, and like base status chance, it can be good, but I mean, I want both crit and status on this weapon. And then increased base crit damage multiplier by 1 time. This one can be alright. It's just like, it can be good, but you know, this Survivor's Edge is just more consistent in my testing. You'll see why in a little bit, but let's get into the mods. Alright, so it might be a little weird looking, right? But hear me out. You got 180% crit chance and 96% status chance, so you're guaranteed crit and you're almost guaranteed status every time. And I have it balanced, so it's mostly cold, 61.7% cold, so it's going to be proccing cold as much as possible, and we want that for the primary frostbite, right? So it'll be on cold status effect, plus 3% crit damage, and plus 2.25% multi-shot for 12 seconds, stacks up to 40 times. This is like ridiculous. You can go with the toxin one, right, and it works just as well most of the time. The only benefit that I have with a cold over toxin is the fact that applying the cold proc is already going to increase your crit damage to the dealt to the enemy. So it's just like if you're hitting enemies and you're not one-shotting them, say you get to like demolitioners and like acolytes and stuff, the cold's going to help you a lot more than the toxin. So getting into the build, right? Prime Shred, I mean, don't have the Prime version, just go with the regular one, but fire rate and punch through is amazing for this bow. Vital Sense for crit damage, and then critical delay for crit chance. And then I mean the minus fire rate isn't really affected because you got Shred on, right? Galvanized Chamber, an essential mod, unless you want to run like the acuity and spectral setup on this, which I'll do a different video for that, because that you have to have like a way to go invis, right? So galvanized chamber, hammer shot and increase crit damage some more, and then status chance, and then we got rhyme rounds with cryo rounds for the cold to get it up high enough where we're actually doing cold procs, right? And then galvanized aptitude. I will be priming most of the time with my Durga, but at the same time, like base steel path, you're going to be one-shotting enemies. If you're especially if you're hitting headshots, you're going to be one-shotting enemies until you get to a high enough level, until I would think it was like around level 2500 or 3000 where it actually wasn't one-shotting anymore, and then I actually had to rely on Durga to prime it, and then I would be one-shotting after I let Durga prime the enemies, right? I do have a Riven. This is the best one I could come up with, or that I've come across so far. Only got 18 rerolls so far, so. But crit damage, multi-shot, and then heat. With the heat, I switched this out for galvanized aptitudes, rhyme rounds out for toxin, the dual toxin mod, so that it creates gas, and I still have the higher percentage of cold, so I'm still proccing primary frostbite, right? If you do get a Riven, you will want to go with at least multi-shot and either crit chance or crit damage. It's really up to you. But it is nice because even though this weapon is extremely powerful, it has a Riven disposition of 4, meaning the Rivens can get to ridiculous numbers. Alright, I'll hop into mission and show you how it works. Alright, so here we are in the mission, right? Get it going. Start getting your cold procs activated. And then, yep, see, there we go. And then, of course, transmute into the Incarnon form. It's essentially just a better Nadaruk. Just goes through all of them. And once you get your stacks, you're pretty good. You just want to make sure. The only problem with the Incarnon, right, running this build with how I have now, once it goes to the Incarnon, it goes to blast on the cold, right, since it does fire. And that's why if I did switch out the aptitude and then the rhyme rounds go with the fire on the Riven, and then like toxin for gas, and then it doesn't matter what the Incarnon does, it's still going to be hitting those cold procs. So it's like there's a lot of different ways to mod this, right? I know a lot of people run this and they'll just do like primary merciless or something, and then they don't have to really worry about it. They just, which, I mean, it will be more consistent with merciless, but at the same time, there's the way this is set up, you've got higher higher damage threshold, I'll say. So the way I have this build is I don't use the Incarnon a lot of the times. I'll just use it as a bow itself. And then if I want to run Incarnon, like that's what I'm focusing on most, right? I could show you that build in a little bit. And then once we get back to the orbiter. But yeah, it's essentially when you go to the Incarnon, right, it's going to switch that cold, since you've got one cold proc, and that's the only damage type you've got. And then you've got the guaranteed heat from the Incarnon, it's going to create blast, right? So I can see, but then it's like it takes a little bit to get through the Incarnon, so you're going to lose most of your stacks from frostbite. Like I said, Incarnon, running it for the Incarnon or just the Incarnon buffs are two different play styles, and this is mostly for running without using the Incarnon. I mean, it does a bunch of damage still. See, I don't have Roar active or anything, and it's still doing nice damage. Activate Roar though, and then you can see this. Oh, hey, there's a headshot, right? This weapon benefits mostly from you getting headshots. So it's like if you're not getting headshots, it's not gonna feel as good to you as, say, Nadaruk or some other bows like Cinta, Paris, all those. But it's, yeah. See, and we'll switch back, right? And then, yeah, essentially just the Incarnon essentially becomes like a better Nadaruk. Although half the time I'll still use Nadaruk over this for the simple fact of the infinite ammo. I don't have to build up the Incarnon mode or anything, so it's pretty easy. Whereas this does benefit from, since it's not considered AoE, whereas the Incarnate or the Nadaruk is, you do increase damage against like Eximus compared to the Nadaruk, because Nadaruk gets that damage debuff for having AoE shots, right? Alright, so here we are, back in the ship, right? And talk about the second build, which, like I said, this one is mostly for when I don't really want to keep switching to the Incarnon form, because it's kind of a, you gotta build, like, building up's not too hard, but the changing to Incarnon mode for the Dread is pretty slow, right? So I'll go to configuration B, and this is my setup for when I'm going, like, I'm trying to use the Incarnon as much as possible, right? You got the same top row, but then the bottom row changes, so it's going to be thermite rounds and malignant force, so to create that gas, right? So that when you go to Incarnon, right, those fire procs that it would do is going to go just increasing the gas procs more, right? And then galvanized aptitude and cryo rounds again. As you can see, it just barely squeezes out over on cold than it does gas. So when you're in the Incarnon, you're not going to keep all your stacks up as high as they are in the base form. But it doesn't, like, you're still going to be getting your cold procs. You're still going to be getting stacks, right? And that's all that really matters. So I'll go into the same mission and show you how this build works. Mind you, this is all the same Incarnon evolutions, right? So,
They're trying to choke you out.
alright, so here we are in the mission, right? Start getting this Incarnon built up. It only takes like a couple shots if you actually hit your shots. Alright, so there we go. And then we switch. See, Incarnon takes a little bit longer than a lot of them. And then, yeah, it's just a lot more damage in Incarnon with this build. And I'm still getting plenty of those procs from primary frostbite. So like this one's a lot more consistent. It's just sometimes I don't feel like switching back to the Incarnon form. So I'll run the first build. But then, like I said, if you're gonna do that, you might as well just go with like Nadaruk or something. There is another build, like my third and final build for running it with like a Loki, which I can show you after this, which is essentially you need to be invis or it's not going to be doing anything, and you need to be hitting your shots or it's not going to be doing anything. So it's a little bit higher skill requirement, but at the same time the amount of damage it does in the end is just so much higher. Because, yeah, like these we mod for a lot of multi-shot, right? Whereas like the invis precision build is going to be, you're going to have to hit your shots, like headshots, and you're going to have to be invisible at all times. And a lot of the times, I don't like to have to be required to hit headshots, right? Because when I'm doing extremely long missions, like endurance runs and stuff, it's going to get really tedious. And mind you, this is without roar, so we can go with roar though, just to so you get headshot and it fills it about half, if not more, a lot of the times. Switch back to Incarnon, and boom. It's like, and that room is gone. This is gonna be, it's like a great weapon, right? But at the same time, the state of bows in the game, it's just kind of slow firing, right? So it's like, it's Incarnon, does help out in that prospect where you're gonna be essentially, it's like, hey, let's wipe that that area, right? So it's, yeah, 2 shots, get the Incarnon. Go to the Xmas, and it's, yeah, Incarnon doesn't like to be getting the headshots too much, right? For some reason, it's supposed to, but it's just buggy. It's just because, like, as the description of the thing is, just essentially it's just a bigger arrow, and it doesn't like to register that correctly. Come on, switch. There we go, to switch to the Incarnon. And that, see, that kills the Acolyte a lot faster than the other one. But yeah, with this one, you're basically going to be wanting to fire consistently, non-stop, hitting enemies non-stop. Otherwise, good luck. You got to keep those stacks up, or else the game's not really going to like you playing bows, right? Especially higher level, because you need to keep your kill count up. See, as you can see, it's like I'm running Helios right now, so it's like I'm not priming at all. But yeah, this is without a primer, right? So because that's gonna change how the weapon performs, right? I'll go to extraction. Then I'll show it once I get to the ship. I will show you the invis build, and then we'll go back into this mission. All right, guys. So here we're back in the ship, and we'll go back to the third build, which this is strictly for when I am running an invis frame, and I'm going to be essentially needing to get headshots, or otherwise this build isn't going to work, right? So we'll get into it. And a lot of these ones, like Spectral Serration, it's not going to show up on your numbers, right? But 330% damage while invisible, extremely good. And then we'll keeping Prime Shred, right? That's, you know, just so you can keep firing as fast as possible. Primary Acuity, plus 350% weak point damage, plus 350% weak point crit chance, and then multi-shot cannot be modified. So there's no point in us running any multi-shot mods, right? And then we keep Vital Sense, Critical Delay, and Hammer Shot, Galvanized Aptitude, right? Pretty simple. And then I did change it up, and I run Malignant Force, right? And this is essentially for, right? So we're going to get Toxin as its base form, right? It's going to be Toxin / mostly. But when we go to the Incarnon, it's going to be Gas. And Gas is extremely good. And then for Arcane, right, this is, you saw the other two both got primary Frostbite. This one is primary Deadhead. On precision, headshot kill plus 120% damage for 24 seconds, stacks up to 3 times, plus 30% to headshot multiplier, and then minus 50% weapon recoil. Since it's, you know, it's a bow, you're not going to notice the weapon recoil, but the headshot multiplier and the damage, right, again, you need precision headshot kills, right? So with this build, that's essentially what it's going to be. So I'm going to switch to Loki, just so we got our invis. Oh, what? Come on, I don't know why it does that. Then I'll go back into the same mission, and we can show this off a little bit. Alright, so we're here in the mission, right? Pop invis. So that's going to give us the 330%. And remember, need to get headshots, and look at that. Essentially, it's on headshots, it's guaranteed red crits, and it's just instantly killing everything. The problem is, you know, being invis, and it's like, hey, we go to Incarnon, right, and it's not going to be doing it that much damage at all. Keep it invis up, like you gotta get headshots even in Incarnon. So you hitting headshots, and you see how it's like a line? It's like that whole line is going to be affected with the precision headshots, right? So it's like, as you can see, hit a body, it's only 40k. We'll go for a head, and it hits all the heads in that line.
Prepare for life support.
Juicy red crits right there. Yep. And this is without any roar buffs or anything. Just invis.
Activating it will buy you more time. capsule. Additional life support has arrived.
See, yeah, with this build, right, it takes a lot more skill, but it's also, as you saw, just one-shot the Acolyte. But you gotta get headshots, or else it's not gonna do any damage. So I gotta shoot this guy, right? It killed him, but it's like, it's not doing nearly as much damage. You get headshots, red crits. Not to mention you build up your Incarnon a lot faster. And for the Incarnon, you essentially just have to put it at head level, and it's just like, oh, there goes that room. So it's like, you gotta aim, right? The Incarnon, you still gotta aim, but you just need to put it at head level so that it hits enemies. Because it's that whole line is, everything that hits that line is getting damaged. Head, shoulders, everything. There are pros and cons to each of these builds, right? If I had to choose one, I'd probably go with the second one, just because it's more consistent and doesn't really take much skill. Alright, back here in the ship, and give my final thoughts on this, right? As, like, the Dread, before this Incarnon, it was still an amazing weapon. After the Incarnon, it's extremely good. I'd probably put it as my second favorite bow in the game at the moment. It's just, in my opinion, the Nadarok is still more consistent. This one can deal a lot more damage for sure, but like I said, this one, the main problem is with the Incarnon, you know, only the Incarnon has the heat procs, so it's like you're gonna have different damage types, different strengths and weaknesses when you're in Incarnon versus out of Incarnon, and it can be kind of messy. I will say, this build definitely better for solo and running in Viz, right? If you're running in a group, enemies are going to be moving around too much. It's going to be harder to hit those headshots. Whereas like when you're solo and in Viz, they're going to be standing still wondering what's going on. This one is essentially the everyday build, whereas this one is, I'm just going to go in a mission, not really think too much, and I'm not going to be switching over to my Incarnon, right? So a lot of different play styles. None of them are bad. It's just the state of the game is in. Bows are kind of lackluster unless they can consistently like kill waves of enemies. Cause it's like it's essentially charged shots, right? You gotta pull the string back, or the arrow back, whatever, and then fire. And that's like, yes, it can do that, but at the same time, it's like, well, that arrow can just do it better, and it's free, right? So, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on Dread and what kind of build you're running. I always like to get everyone's feedback. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.